Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investing for the Win. I am Linda Pedersen, and your other host today is Andrew Brown, and we're so excited to have you here today. So today we're going to cover rehabbing part two. So last week we covered at a high level what is a rehab. I did go into repair estimator. And the reason why I did that is it's not chronologically the order in which you do things. But what I found is that people need to feel comfortable with being able to do a repair estimator, having that tool and being able to understand what to calculate, how to calculate it when going into evaluating rehabs. So this week we're going to find deals, which and do a high level analysis to say, are we even in the same ballpark? And there's a lot to it. And the problem is that, and not a problem, it's just the challenge, the opportunity, right? Is that you've got different markets have different topics. So we're going to actually cover like when you are targeting rehabbing and you want to do rehabbing, how do you take that approach? What is your strategic plan so that you can customize it to your area? So we're going to focus on finding rehabs, right? So at a high level today, what we're going to cover is identifying your target property. What is the market impact to that? Where to find them, how to reach them, the Mayo formula, and we're going to make you make an oath when we get to that point. So the rehabbing process, I covered this last week, but I wanted to recap it here for those who may have missed or are still new to this. The process typically involves acquiring the property and then renovating the property, selling or renting the property, and then recognizing that rehab projects are great for investors who are skilled at project management or can afford to hire contracts to make necessary repairs. And then just to recap that the repair estimator that I shared last week, and I also posted the file in our Real Estate Investing for the Win Facebook group. So you're not a member of that group, go ahead and join and you can download that file. Recognize that those repair costs are more for the Austin market, what we've experienced, and only cover material and labor. So at the bottom, you can have your contingency and you can have your GC fee. Okay, perfect. So do you remember this property, Andrew?
I do. You and I have different names for it.
Yes. What do you call it?
I call it the Rat House.
And I call it the Ratatouille house. And why did we call it that?
There was an issue with rodents.
Yes, there were. Yes, there were. Did we get rid of them?
We did get rid of them.
Yes, we did. Oh,
This became a beautiful home.
these are not in the order, I think. Okay. So I will fix that super fast. Animation page. Where is your? These are not in the order. Sorry.
That's
How do I
okay.
clear
This will
them?
be some
None
masterful
up
editing later.
here. Start it on click. There we go. Ta-da! Okay. What is your exit strategy? Right? So are you doing a retail flip or a BRRRR? So just straight rehabs, right? Keeping it as is. A retail flip means that you are going to try to fix it up and sell it for a higher price for a higher end buyer. And then a BRRRR is more of keeping it as a rental. So your finishes are going to be maybe not as high end, but I will say, and Andrew and I have seen this time and time again, we feel that your structural and mechanical should be sound regardless of your exit strategy, right? You don't want to put lipstick on a pig because we've seen that before. And we've seen investors, have in mind a finish that they want and they have a budget, but because the budget didn't really allow for all the structural mechanical, they wanted to put it towards the finish, but then it didn't sell. And it didn't sell because the house wasn't solid. Remember? Remember our realtor telling us that she went to a house, it felt like it was on stilts?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So very important. So really understand what is your exit strategy. And this goes back to what I covered in last week's webinar, which is understanding your market. What kind of market are you in? Because I think when we first started, I was like, I want to do rentals. I want passive income. And come to find out, Austin wasn't the best for that. It was better for retail because we were in a more of a seller's market and appreciating market as well. So first, understand that. What is your exit strategy? Properties where you can increase the value to make a profit. And are any thoughts on ways to increase the value when doing a rehab?
Well, lots of ideas. Like too many to count. Where do you want to start?
Just high level.
Yeah, this look, this could be everything from, this particular property was rat infested. You can see by the trees growing over the top over my head and the shrubs on the right that were growing up against the windows and the brick and pulling it apart. You can see all the trash in the front yard. That was not temporary, like they were moving out. That's what the yard was like. Rehabbing it could be remove all the trash, remove all the junk from the inside, pull up all the nasty carpeting, clear out all the dirt, debris, landscape the yard so that people can see it. It could be that simple. People couldn't even see this one, and it was kind of too gross to go inside.
Yeah.
This happens to be the house where they decided to do their own tile work, but they didn't know how to grout. So they had put the tile in, not grouted it, and then they had little kids in there, and the kids that all the gaps were filled with gummy bears and crayons and
Yeah.
food, and hence the rodent issue. So it could be as simple as that. It could be as big as, you know what, this should be a 2-story house that's twice the size. There's all
Yep.
different flavors in between, and that's part of figuring out what do you want to do? What's in your skill set? What does the market want? There's a lot of pieces there that you got to think through.
Agreed. Thank you. So, yep, rehab as is, addition, tear down, new build, right? But just to rehab is as is, meaning you're not really changing a lot of the structure, right? So if it's a 3-2, you keep it as a 3-2. An addition means, like in this house, Andrew, it was a 2-1.
This actually had a third bedroom, but it was the size of a large closet.
And then they also converted the garage, right? But with no ventilation,
Kind of, yeah, they kind
and
of
it was
converted
not
the garage.
permitted.
There was someone
Yeah.
living there. How about that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So a true addition would mean making maybe a 2-1 into a 3-2,
Yeah.
which we've done. And then of course, tear down new build is you keep the land. And you could even in Austin, tear down 1 and build 2, if you've got the right code and the right jurisdiction. So there's different
You can build
flavors.
more now.
Oh, right.
The code
Yes,
changed. You can build more than 2 now.
exactly. And then potentially even converting it to commercial. So seeing opportunities where others don't. Um, and then ideally in this scenario, you would want a seller who has equity so that they can sell it at the price you need to purchase it at to be able to fix it up. I will say,
So I'm sorry, can we go back to the convert to the commercial?
yeah,
So I just want to make sure, again, there's all sorts of flavors of this. This could be, you have a house that's on the outside of a neighborhood and on a street where there's other commercial, and you're literally converting the house into an office building. That's one version. Of course, you have to make sure the code allows it. The other is we did a house that was in an unincorporated area, or what we call here the ETJ, the extraterritorial jurisdiction, where the city didn't have much say in what was done. And we converted a a garage into a room, and we intentionally put an exterior door coming out of the old garage so that if someone wanted to, and I'm just throwing ideas, things that people do, if they wanted to run a tax office out of their house and have a separate entrance for people to pull up and walk in. People run hair salons, they do all sorts of things.
yeah,
If the code allows it, it's a great way to add value just by rearranging the functionality of the house.
good. I love it. And then what we found is that the seller needs to have equity in this scenario because you're trying to fix it up. And if they're selling it at ARV, after repair value, minus repairs, there's no room for you to make money, right? You've got to have your carrying costs, your holding costs, your profit, plus risk, right? So you've got to have enough equity. And we're going to go through what we call the Mayo formula, which is at a high level, quick analysis. And we're going to show you the do's and don'ts with that too. All right, so target rehab properties, right? So major damage or neglect, right? At a high level, just foundational, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and this can include septic systems too. Mold infestation, fire or water damage, cosmetic damage, neglect, or outdated. And if you're in a hot market, you're going to want really, really outdated, not just light cosmetic carpet and paint, because like in our market, so much competition, people with, will use their own money, move into it themselves and do the work themselves, right? It's not a flip per se. And if you've got them compounded with difficult situations, such as probate, foreclosure, divorce, disease, job loss, which one usually causes the other, right? Usually they don't have the money to fix it up. And so it drives into neglect. And then with the age of the home, then you typically start to see more things break down. And then, of course, opportunities to increase the value above the current as-is structure, like we just talked about with additions, tear down new builds, converting into commercial. So ideally, you would want somebody who's distressed and motivated. And what we found is that you can do marketing, you can buy a list, you can do driving for dollars based on the distress. And usually, the more distressed they are, the more motivated they are. But not everybody responds the same way to stress. Some people we've seen, Andrew, remember on the Quentin Tarantula house, we saw where all they had was a notice of default, and they were like, I can't sleep at night. I need this to be solved ASAP. And then we've had some that are literally living in tear down, the home is kind of tear down material.
Look,
And they basically say, you're gonna have to drag my dead body out of here. I'm never selling this house.
yeah, this is a picture of the house that you just showed the exterior of. And interestingly, if you look closely, you can see the tile, there's no grout. So this was after we cleaned out the house. This was after. This is clean. This house, I don't know if you have pictures later, but this house was beautiful when we were done with it.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do. And it had foundation issues, plumbing issues, it had it all. The rodents were the least of our worries. They left once we took out their food and nesting source. But what I wanted to bring up, what you just said, there's people who it's causing them not to lose or not to be able to sleep at night. And you mentioned the Quentin Tarantula house. And yes, we're saying that on purpose because there was a tarantula in the house. So as a pet, not just wandering around.
Well, that's what they named it.
Yeah. So they were ready to move out as soon as they saw things going downhill. This particular house is an example of the first time I walked in, she's screaming at her bank. I mean, she was literally screaming at them. Then I heard the story about her dragging mattresses out in her front yard and setting them on fire because she felt she had bed bugs. It goes downhill from there. And she had equity, but she couldn't even move forward. There was actually no path to move forward because unfortunately her husband had passed away and she couldn't even negotiate to sell the house. We had to help her to get there. So this can sometimes, look, if these were all easy, everybody would be doing it. And there'd be honestly tons of competition. Everybody'd be going after the same houses. This is one that people walked away from because it was too complicated. It was too much work. But at the end of the day, we have the owner of this house who thinks she literally thought we were angels sent to her from God, which we're not, but she felt that way. Second, we were able to make money. Third, she was able to make money and move on with her life. She bought a nice piece of land and was able to move on with her life and not have to deal with all these issues. And that was kind of a good feeling. But when you look at all the difficult situations, I think it's about understanding what is their situation and what can we do to help them.
Exactly. Beautiful. Agreed. So market impact, are you in a seller's market or in a buyer's market?
So where are
Andrew, any
we?
thoughts on seller's market versus buyer's market, and what are we in?
Well, so I would say the whole world right now, um, it's 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 a buyer's market right now. Most of a good portion of our country. When we say a seller's market, there's a whole range there. So, and actually, this house was part of that seller's market, right? How many offers
Mhm.
did we get on this house day one? We
Yeah,
had
a
multiple
lot.
offers day one for over asking price.
Yep.
That happened here. What was that? 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a significant seller's market, and there's a balancing act there. So we've given the example that and I know Detroit, I use this as an example. In Detroit, parts of it are coming back, and there's a way to make money there flipping houses. But for a while, you could buy houses for pennies on the dollar. Well, that sounds great, but then you still have to sell them
Yeah.
and you have to fix them up. And if you mess up fixing them up, or you take too long, or your contractor goes bad, or something happens, that's a tough situation to have it sitting on the market, losing money every month. In our market, and this is for those people that are in or have been in or will be in a seller's market, because I have no doubt we'll be in a seller's market again here in Austin, Texas. It's harder to buy the homes. They're very expensive. We've told the story that we've bought tear downs for $350,000. Tear downs. Um, but when you can sell houses on them for over 1.2 million, it becomes worth it. So
Yep.
it's just understanding what your market is, which I think was your point of asking this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the things that we saw in a seller's market that can give you a clue is everybody's, so the seller gets to be picky because there's lots of buyers, right? And so we saw that with, like when we were in a seller's market, Andrew, we were saying, okay, we're going to sell this house, but cash or conventional, no FHA, right?
We were
Um,
weighing offers based on not just the dollar amount offered.
yeah,
How
but the
quickly
type
could
of
they
loan.
close? How likely were
Mhm.
they to close? Because we
Yeah,
had
and they were they
multiple.
were they were waiving their option period or their contingency period. They were waiving their financing. So, but a buyer's market really is when you've got a lot of sellers and very few buyers. So the buyer gets to be picky, and that's where the seller needs to try to put their best foot forward. They need to go above and beyond to accommodate the buyer, offer more credits. I feel like Austin is comparatively like we were hot, 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 hot. I feel like we're more neutral towards a buyer's market, but still there's a lot of buyers out there, but they're picky, right? They want really, really nice if they're going to buy for a good price. And when you get into, if you look at things like a pyramid, when you're at the lower price points, you have more buyers, you have less risk, but potentially less profit. And when you're at the top of the pyramid, right, and you're targeting buyers who want to spend a lot of money, you have fewer buyers, they're pickier buyers and higher risk, but potential to make a lot more money. So you really need to evaluate where you are in the kind of market you want to achieve to create your strategy. So yeah, are you in appreciating, neutral, or potentially if you're in a stable rental market, that might be good to do a BRRRR, right? Where you're buying it, you're rehabbing it, you're renting it, you're refinancing it, and keeping it to rent. So strategies for the different types of markets, right? So right now in our market, Andrew, for rehabbing, it's really, I would say, going after the more complex, where you've got people who can't compete as much, right? And when you're dealing at the lower price points, you have a lot more competition, and people are just willing to overpay for something that's not worth it because there's not as much at the lower price point. But you can make a lot of money at the higher price point. But if you don't have a lot of experience, maybe it's wholesaling or prehabbing, right? Where you're really solving the seller's problem and potentially finding the buyer, but not necessarily doing all that work. But the more you can solve and find these deals, the more you're in control and can make more money. Any thoughts on that, Andrew? You want to add?
No, I think you nailed it.
Okay, perfect. So where to find them? Looking for gentrifying neighborhoods, and this is actually more of your realm, Andrew, of the analysis, right? looking at for gentrifying neighborhoods, not necessarily tear down. So if you're looking to rehab, you're looking for houses that are being updated, not necessarily torn down and built new, because we've got a lot of that. Like they're past the gentrifying stage, and some of those homes, their highest and best use is not to restructure it, but rather target the higher end of the market, especially like Andrew, you were saying earlier, is where you have code opportunities to tear down one and build two or three in that same space, right? That can drive it to where you're doing tear down new build. So if you want to do rehabbing, you're looking for where that's not happening, but rather gentrifying. Typically 30 years or older, unless you've got damage specifically happening. Properties that have damage, neglect, or are outdated, right? So again, going to like this kitchen, severely outdated, right? But it's also got that damage and neglect. And then looking for areas with demand that support your exit strategy. And I see this often, a lot of newer investors start looking out where there's less competition, but also that means that there's less and less demand, right? And so they will sometimes say, well, how do you run comps when I don't have comps? And I'm like, well, then you're gambling, right? So if you have money to sit, maybe you can wait for things to grow to it. But then you're taking a risk, right? If you need money today and you're looking for an investment strategy where you're making money today, you need to look for demand today.
Yeah, and I want to just call out something you just said about gambling. If you want to gamble, go to Vegas. Go to Vegas. Have a ball. Go
Yeah.
to the casino somewhere. Not with real estate. This is not something you want to gamble with. And the more information you have, whether it's things you've picked up on your own, whether it's watching this webinar, whatever you're doing, get as much knowledge as you can so that you're not gambling. I mean, nothing's 100% guaranteed. So you're just improving your information base so that you can make an educated decision, but it shouldn't just be a random chance.
Agreed. Okay, where to find them? So on market through MLS and syndicated sites such as realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, right? So they take the MLS content and then they push it out. Also recognize if you are in a disclosure or non-disclosure state. So Texas is a non-disclosure state. So they don't always have to push that information to like the syndicated site. So they're not as accurate as MLS. So if you're in a non-disclosure state, highly recommend that you need MLS access to get real comps. And then also recognize that typically on average, 80% of the homes that are bought and sold through MLS. And so that's why we have MLS access, because the syndicated sites are pretty far off.
Yeah, and just I want to hammer that point home so that no one makes a mistake. If you're using Zillow, please be careful and understand, look it up, see if your state is a disclosure or non-disclosure. I'll give the best example for us is we had a house that was a tear down. It was already partially torn down. And I believe we fixed it up, but built two houses on it, sold them for 1.2 million. And if you go on Zillow right now and punch in that address, how many years ago did we do that, sweetie? Was it 6 years ago? 7 years ago? It was about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
If you go on Zillow today, it still shows the old teardown in there and tells you that it's worth $400,000. So it's not even close, and it's not accurate as far as what's there. So you can't use it. So just be very cautious.
Yeah, for sure. Building relationships with realtors, contractors, and attorneys, right? So it is still and always will be a people business. So a good way to get in the know, if one is on the market, that means it's already listed, but to get to know ones that have issues that may not be on the market yet, building relationships is a good one. And then of course, buying lists to be able to market, and then driving for dollars is always a good one, right? So looking for damaged houses, writing down the address, getting the information, and then you can then market to them. So how to reach them, AKA how to market to them, multi-touch direct marketing means I'm marketing directly to that person. And typically multi-touch, a lot of people think of, I'm going to send them one letter and then a second letter and then a third letter. So I'm touching them multiple times, but it doesn't have to be just one way, right? You can send them a direct mail, but you can also do multi-touch through other different ways, such as door hangers, door knocking, bandit signs, social media, such as major social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, or niche platforms like Nextdoor, the Nextdoor app, right? You can also do paid ads and word of mouth. Anything you want to add there, Andrew?
No, I think it's funny. This page, the multi-touch direct marketing, the social media, that's more Linda's world.
Yeah.
I'm more on the previous page, the building the relationships. So finding a real estate attorney saying, hey, you have people come to you with all sorts of real estate problems, and some you can help them with, some they have no options. Let me help them with it. And by the way, when for referring them to me, and if we end up helping them, you could be the real estate attorney on it. You can do the title work. We can pay you a fee on it. Whatever works. Yeah, with the contractors, I love the idea of finding a good roofing or a reputable roofing contractor who gives bids and finds that not only did he not get the bid, but no one got the bid. Well, what does
Yeah.
that say? That they've got a leaky roof, water getting into the house, and they decide not to fix up their roof. That's a flashing light saying we need someone to help us.
Yeah, exactly. And to that point, if you're building relationships with them, you have to do multi-touch. They won't remember you down the road, even potentially a week later, when they potentially have a deal that might be a fit for you. So you have to help them remember you and think of you when the deals come through. And so an easy way to do that is, once you've built that relationship, to put them on an autoresponder like an email or a text campaign, especially email, if you've built that relationship. And you can pre-write those and automate those as well. And then, of course, working through realtors, not only realtors that have properties that are already listed, but pocket listings. And you can even have them, go do some of this marketing to find distressed sellers as well. So the Mayo formula. So you have to pinky promise or take an
Please,
oath, right? So repeat after me. I promise
I
to never,
promise,
ever,
never,
ever,
ever,
ever, ever
ever, ever
use the Mayo formula
use the Mayo
to,
formula
to buy a property.
to buy a property.
And the reason is that it's really only used as a quick analysis to see if a deal is worth the time to do a full analysis, right? So Andrew, if you were to say a good full analysis, right? A desktop analysis, going out to the property, looking at it, doing a repair estimator, and then calculating all of your costs, how long would that take?
Going out to just getting to the property takes time. Getting there and back, gathering all the information can take an hour. I usually try and do it in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're walking into just nasty situations where you need to wear a hazmat suit. So it is time consuming, and your time is valuable. Time is everything. So
Yeah, I mean, I would probably a couple days, right? A few days total
yeah, then
of
once you
doing
get
a
it back,
real,
once you get it back, you got to still do the analysis, but there's a reason for that.
yeah. And then versus doing a Mayo formula, how long do you think that can take?
Uh, Less than a minute.
Yeah, right. And so that's why we do it, is we say, are we even in the ballpark? Is it worth my time? Because I've seen wholesalers put out information and you do that full analysis and you're not even close. So it's really to save your time to say, am I in the ballpark? And so just want to make sure that everybody knows, by reading this, right, you absolve us from any legal ramifications. This is for informational purposes only, right? What you do with it is on your own. And I say that because unfortunately we are in a litigious society, and I've seen a lot of bad actors. So
Yeah, we're kind of joking here, but we're not. We're trying to hammer home a point. We've had people show up to meetups we've done where they bring us properties they have under contract, and we say, well, where's your analysis? Because we'd love to look over it. And they say, oh, here it is. And they show us that they use the Mayo formula. I can show you mathematically why the Mayo formula loses its power as you get into higher priced homes. I can show you so many different ways that it can be way off base, but you know what it's like? If you're outside and you're trying to fly a kite with your kid and you want to see which way the wind's blowing, and you stick your thumb in your mouth to get it wet and you hold it out in the breeze and you feel which side gets cold, that's enough to fly a kite. But if you're
That's like
not
the Mayo
launching a
formula.
NASA space, or I'm sorry, I should probably use SpaceX. When you're launching SpaceX, sorry, we're here in Austin, uh, they have more sophisticated equipment than, Elon Musk is not sticking his thumb into the mouth and holding it up in the breeze. So as a basic figure out which way the wind's blowing and is it worth it to even put your kite out there? Yeah, the Mayo formula is fine.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect. Okay. So the Mayo formula, right? Maximum allowable offer. ARV after repair value times 70% minus repairs. That's the formula, right? So that's why we can do it this fast, right? What is our
Wow, who
ARV?
designed this bathroom? This is amazing. Isn't that
You did.
beautiful? Oh, did
You
I do
did. That's
that?
why.
Oh, good. Sorry.
But who did it?
Oh, I don't do the work. That's too hard for me.
All right, so that's our Mayo formula. So also at a high level, I want to evaluate risk. So I'm going to take you live to go do this. And again, do you know why I put this picture in here?
Let's see if we're in the ballpark.
Good job. I thought you'd be
My wife
happy.
used a sports reference. I'm so proud of you. Tear
So
to my
applying the
eye.
Mayo formula to live deals, right? So let's look at this. I want to show you. All right. Actually, let me share. Yeah, I've got screen too. Okay, perfect. So let me know if you can see this. Can you see my Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to evaluate risk and understand the Mayo formula at a high level. So just to make the number simple, right? We're going to say that on property number one, it is there we go. It's the ARV is 200,000, which is unheard of in Austin, but it is. And I just saw an HGTV show where somebody was saying that they bought a home for $6,500, $6,800. I was like, where? But they sold it for like 115. You can't even buy land here for that, right? Okay, so say the ARV is 200,000.
And just to be clear, because I don't know who's going to be watching this and what level they're going to be at as far as their knowledge, sophistication. But for anybody out there that's looking at this saying, no, wait a minute, what's the ARV again? That's basically what would a house be worth fixed up to an acceptable level for that neighborhood. So for example, the rat house that we were just looking at, it's looking in that neighborhood and saying, okay, this is I don't remember the size, but let's say it's a 1,200 square, 1,500 square foot home, 3 bedroom, 1 bath with a 1 car garage, and saying, okay, here's some recent comps, things that sold, not that are on the market because you don't know what they're going to sell for, but what did they sell for recently? And saying, okay, this one that's a similar size sold for 180, this one for 210, this one for 215. We average them all together, we come up with about 200. So that's the ARV.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay. So ARV equals that times 0.7 is 140,000. And so we just took off 30%, right? And that 30% covers your money costs, your carrying costs, your selling costs, and your profit. And your carrying costs is insurance, taxes, right? The things that you have to carry that aren't associated to the repairs. So ARV times 70% minus repairs. So say this first project has 80,000 in repairs, right? Then you would say 140 minus the 80 means my maximum allowable offer would be 60,000. Okay, but recognize that in that 30% discount, it's a 30% ballpark, right? Your money cost might be different than our money costs. Your realtor cost might be different than our realtor costs. this doesn't call out if we're holding the project for 3 months or for a year. So that's why you do not use the Mayo formula to actually buy the house. You need to know those level of details when you are actually buying. It's just saying in this scenario, if I just calculated my Mayo is 60,000 and they're asking 200,000, I'm not in the ballpark. Right?
Yeah, no,
And it's also a percentage.
I'll give another example of why you have to be careful with the Mayo formula. That 30%, as Linda said, that includes your carrying costs, which are tied to how long are you going to hold it for? Because if you're doing it in 2 months, it's very different than if you're holding it for 12 months. Well, let's say you have two houses, basically identical, kind of a lipstick rehab, paint on the outside, floors on the inside, updates some things, and that's it. But both houses need windows. Okay. And one of them's out in the country, out in the middle of nowhere. It's not inside a city. It's an ETJ where the county's going to be looking at it. Getting permits is fast and easy. And all you're looking to do is replace the windows on the outside. You probably have that permit in under a month. You might have it within a week.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you have very similar house, but it's in a historic district inside a city where the house was built in the 30s, and because it's got wood windows, guess what? You have to replace them with wood windows, and it has to go past the historical committee first and get approval. All of a sudden, you're looking at months to get your permit, and then you're looking at special order for wood windows, and your carrying costs, instead of it taking a month, all of a sudden you've got like 9 months. That will really impact that 70%. So anyway, it's
Absolutely.
just, that's again, I'm going to stop harping on, everybody already signed the agreement not to use the Mayo formula, so I'll shut up. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at another property. Say, for example, we found another property with the exact ARV.
Amazing.
Amazing, right? So then ARV times 70%, still at 140. But in this case, the repairs is only 20,000. Right? So then my Mayo means I could pay 120,000 for that house. But like at the end of the day, what do we care about? We care about our profit, right? So in this scenario, here's the question for you. What is the profit on deal number one? And the reality is that it's calculated based off of the ARV when you're going into a deal. Of course, at the end, the profit is how much you get left, right? But when you're going into the deal, and that's why the Mayo formula doesn't really give you that detail, it's say somewhere around 10, 15%. So if I say that my profit on the first one is that times a 15% profit is what my goal is, then that means my profit on deal number one would be around 30,000. So what would be your profit on deal number two? Andrew, can you predict this in your head?
I'm going to guess the same thing.
Exactly. Good
Amazing.
job.
Amazing.
Amazing. The reason why I'm highlighting this is because are these deals the same? Right? What's the difference?
So I do want to just call out that not only are they not the same, if you had a choice, let's say you could only have the bandwidth to do one of these, I'm jumping on property B. And
What?
here's the reason.
Why?
As I mentioned, the holding costs will eat you alive. And if you only need to do 20,000 in repairs versus 80,000, I'm going to assume that property B is going to get done a lot faster.
Yep.
And there's just a lot more that can go wrong, a lot more surprises that can pop up when you've got something that needs 80,000 worth of work on a $200,000 home.
Yeah.
So risk wise, it would make sense to go for property B.
Absolutely. The other thing is, to your point, the longer the time you take off market working on it, the more the market can change. And the more repairs you have to do, that means you're probably opening up walls, which means you probably get surprises, which is unknown work that eats up your profit. So if you get two, right? If you're finding deals and you choose which one you want to take on, I would absolutely agree with Andrew, take on property B. So now that we've got this process under our belt, let's go look live at some potentials, right? So say I am on the MLS. Okay. You've got typically
So everybody knows this is the one that covers basically the Austin and San Antonio markets.
Yeah. Yep. And so MLS has put together these categories, right? New active listings, price decrease, price increase, back on market, active under contract, pending, closed, withdrawn, expired, and hold.
Look at all those price increases. Does that tell you what our market is right now?
Yeah. Look at
None,
all these price decreases.
but no price increases. Wow.
There's more
Wow.
price decreases than active listings. So at a high level, right there, you can tell a lot about our market. And then closed means that they didn't, they sold, right? And then withdrawn, expired, hold, right? So just looking at this list, if I was looking for distressed properties, which categories do you think might have some distressed properties in them? Probably price decrease, back on market, withdrawn, expired, or hold, right? So if we look at price decreases, sometimes as we go through these, and again, you could spend forever getting distracted by all the shiny objects and looking at all the details of all these properties, but say I want to go fast, right? I'm looking for houses that need work, right? That one's got a price reduced. And then if I look at this, not a lot of description of issues, right? I'm looking for distress and motivated. That one looks nice. It's virtually staged. This one looks like it's got some work, right? Maybe. A lot of land next to construction. But it's probably pretty far out there in Leander, right?
I'm
For
liking that one.
895. You guys see this? For 890, sorry, I just realized 895,000, right? What's our median price point in Austin? Under 500,000. So this is above the median price point. I'm already looking at it and saying, this is a higher price point in further out, right? You're going to have a harder time selling it for a higher price, but there might be opportunities for, right, converting it to commercial. But you've got to deal with all the construction and commercial around it. So not a true rehab fit. 285. I don't know how much it needs.
So let's talk about that though. So first of all, can you go back to the previous one quickly? I agree with you. That's not for most people. I'm going to follow up on that property.
Okay.
Because this probably has to do with, to Linda's point, this is probably subdividing. It may have commercial applications. This is a complicated project. This is not a rehab. I completely agree with you. Oh, thanks. And just so everybody understands what Linda is doing, learning about real estate is fantastic. Studying it is fantastic. None of it matters if you don't take action. It's like, Linda's going to love this example. It'd be like reading the Bible, but not living it. Okay.
Yep.
If you want to study real estate, but you don't take action, it doesn't matter. So yeah, I'll be following up on that one. So the other thing I want to call out on that last one, they dropped the price from 950 to 890 to 895. Yeah. So look, what is that, about 5% decrease? That's not insignificant. But if you go back to the next one you're going to, they dropped it 5,000. That is a very small drop. That's an agent trying to get people's attention, not necessarily lowering it enough that it'll make much of a difference.
Oh yeah, we've seen realtors play games. We've seen them
drop
reduce
it by
a dollar
$500
or a penny a day consistently. So they started at 310 and have slowly reduced it but in a month,
Yeah.
in a month. So
Yeah.
25,000
So,
in a month, which is a big percentage of
yeah,
310.
it's a great point. This is where my initial look at it saying, oh, they only dropped it 5,000. What Linda did is she dug in further and said, yeah, but they've actually dropped it 25,000 just in a few weeks, in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. This
So
was probably
the other
someone
quick,
motivated.
yeah, and the other quick analysis that I would do on this one, it depends on the tools that you have access to, but in our MLS, we've got something called Realist, right? Where I can see details about this property. And from an investor standpoint, this is how I'm going to quickly look at it once it pulls up. And we can look at these pictures. It looks like it's rental ready already.
Mhm.
Outdated, but so if we look at this, it's a 2-2, right? 1194 square feet. It's a condo, right? But the other piece I'm gonna look at is they're getting taxed at 327,000. Maybe they're not negotiating it. But the other piece is the real AVM puts it at nearly 300,000, which would be kind of close to an ARV without doing the analysis. And then the other piece I look at is, do they have equity? And they only had one mortgage at 68,000 from 2003, right? So therefore, I would say, yes, they have equity, but they are asking close to value. So if I were going to do this as a rental, I might go to rentometer.com and look at a 2.2 and 78757, right? Uh,
I have never seen this before. This is, you know your stuff.
thanks,
Rentometer.
rentometer.
I love it.
Yep. So it's a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath plus rents. Just again, high level, am I in the ballpark? So if I wanted to look at it as a rental, right? The average is 1670 and they're asking 285. So we're not even close to that 1%. Right. So it wouldn't necessarily cash flow. I'd have to pay down more money, right, in order for it to make rent. Okay, so next house. We looked at that. Okay. So I'm looking for truly distressed properties. Just because they aren't getting their price does not necessarily mean that they're distressed.
So
So
picture
another,
the first picture Linda showed of me standing in the yard, and a picture that honestly I didn't know she had taken. But you could see from the outside that it was distressed. You could tell.
yeah,
Usually it's not 100%. There's people who have houses that look pretty on the outside, bad on the inside. There's people that way too. But there's houses that look that way and vice versa. But this, like the one Linda's showing right now, without looking too far, the yard's manicured, the outside looks well maintained. Yeah.
true, right? And the 525 out in Liberty Hill,
Mm.
525 is the median for Austin, and this is on the outskirts. So this is a much nicer house and a higher price point for the area that it's in. So the other way to look at MLS is not only just looking at the property watch and whatever the status is by doing a keyword search. So what we've done is we've set up a keyword search based on distress words, right? And then now having that set up that we can run all the time. And so that's
So
this one.
hang on, before you do that, sorry, I know we'll take all day, but I want to cover something that was on. Can you go back to that MLS listing? One thing you can do to narrow your parameters, you can put in the amount of land. I happen to know this area where this house is, and if you look on the bottom there where it says acres, it's almost a full acre. The value of that house is more the land, and guess what? You can't really rehab land. You can a little bit, but that's not where you're going to make your money. You're not fixing up a
Yeah,
house. It's the land that has the value. So this
exactly.
one simple way to shorten and narrow down your focus is say, only give me things that are on under, a third of an acre.
Yep. Beautiful. Okay, so I set this up and I called the distressed, right? And greater than 180 days on market. And so
So
right?
I'm laughing that that one on the left came up under distress, but there's probably a reason.
Well, sometimes like, I learned like if you use the word opportunity, sometimes they use it in a positive when I'm thinking of it as a negative.
Right.
Um, so this one, or maybe motivated, right? So this one, the property is distressed. AI generated photo of what's possible. Look at that. Interesting,
They did a glamour shot. That's fantastic.
right? So yeah, I don't know if that's asbestos siding. They obviously don't have central air. They've got window units. It's, if you look at the foundation, right, it's on pier and beam, not a slab. Got a metal roof, but it's right next to commercial, right behind commercial. But this is 11th Street, so it might be worth, so West 11th Street, so it might be worth uh doing, look at this right here, right? That one's, I don't know if you can see my cursor. That's a new build, but
I
it's a
can.
single new build. Um, this looks like multifamily right here. So it depends on the size of the lot, which is not very big. I don't know how much it goes into this space.
Well, this is about looking at this one and saying, what would you want it for? So would I want to buy that and move my family there? Not necessarily, but for someone who works and lives downtown or likes the in town or as a rental, this could be fantastic.
Well, and maybe not a long-term rental, but a short-term rental,
Yep.
right? If it's close proximity, you might be able to do an Airbnb, which you have to find out the code if you're allowed to do Airbnbs in that area. But right, if you've got higher traffic and you've got amenities, activities nearby,
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to know your area. So where this is located, I'm laughing because this weekend we happen to have a huge football game and a huge Formula One race on the same day.
yeah,
There's not going to be enough rooms for everybody.
no.
This would rent out every day of the week. That's funny.
So that's one that you probably need to have a little bit more experience with. So let's see if we can find another one that needs work that's not in the millions.
Wait,
Over here.
why do you think that one needs work?
That
Wow.
one needs a lot of work.
I
Do
know
you
where
know where
this is.
Galt Street is?
Yes, I do.
I have no idea. Is it east? Downtown east?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now because you got to take action.
Yeah, so if I look at the listing on this one at a high level, and let's do the Mayo formula on this one. They didn't show any of the insides, actually. So like for me, I would, this might be a tear down. It's a 78758. So if you look at the map, yeah, 183. So just northwest of downtown. So if I looked at this super quick, I would probably say that this one, my guess is this one has an ARV of like 500. What are you thinking, Andrew? You have a guess?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
3.2, 1,200 square feet, market value of 355, 385 real AVM. Do they have equity? They've had some list pendants foreclosures, notice of sales, right? Which means they're financially distressed. Um,
Hmm.
records, so they haven't sold it. 2023, they had a list pendants, which is the, like they've had notice of sales, list pendants, notice of sales, list pendants, all the way back, including 2018. So a history of financial challenges, and they bought it in 2010. So they've had refis on it since 2021, right? So this could be like the sum of these. So their house is distressed and they're financially distressed. But I don't know if this could be a tear down new build.
Yeah, we should follow up on that one too.
Okay. I'm finding deals for you, huh?
Yeah, this, just so you know, and everybody won't care, but this, it's important to know your area. This is right behind Hall Chiropractic, but it's in the interior of the neighborhood. Great
Mm.
location. They bypass all traffic in the area by being in that location. Okay.
I'm trying to find a simple one for you guys to do a repair estimate on. But this is what happens, I think, when you're in a tough market.
Well, I'm just looking at the time. We may need to continue this later. What about that bottom left?
That seems like it needs a lot of work. Well, this one's boarded up.
Debbie, to answer your question, yes, we will. She's asking whether we'll be discussing tear
Ah,
downs and new builds in the future. And we have
yeah.
some really good examples of them.
That picture's so little. That's all you get.
It's
That's
probably
it.
not,
You don't get anything on the inside.
that's probably out, Nick. Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it's got a good description. Great location, hot east, Austin. Yeah, tear down. Sold as is, bring your offer. And then talk about, so obviously they're motivated here, right? Oh, look at this.
It's been on
So
the
what we're
market
talking about,
for 3 years.
from 600,000 down to 390 consistently. But I would say the marketing, they could use with better pictures, right? And, you could even do, like floor plans, do the work of figuring out the code. So the lot is 0.35 acres.
Mhm.
So it's big enough to do a tear down and 2 new builds, but I don't know about if the trees, doesn't seem like to have a lot of trees. So that could be a tear down new build. If there's comps in the area, right? So at 390, if you bought it, well, do we say this one has equity? I didn't look at that one yet, right? If they have equity, right, there's a lot of things you could do.
There's a new
Um,
build right next door to it.
well, there you go. Is it a condo regime?
Not, I don't believe so.
Just one?
It's also one block from the East Boggy Creek Greenbelt.
They have no mortgage on this house.
I
So
hope
they have,
everybody's getting this, that we're just taking a few minutes and just kind of loosely going through this live. There's there's opportunity out there. It's just knowing how and where to look.
yep. And if this realtor has been working it for 3 years, they probably want to get paid because they've done all this work and haven't gotten paid. Well, what if we went to them and said, hey, would you like, could you take both sides of the commission? Not represent me, take
Do,
both sides of the commission. They would
do
be
me a,
more motivated.
do me a favor, scroll up. Keep going to all the way to the top. See if it's in the floodplain, all the way to the top. Flood map. Yeah,
500 a year.
that's not horrible. I thought it was in the 100 because I know that area. There's everything you see there in purple is concerning.
Yes.
Okay.
So we found some deals for us to follow up on.
Well, and everybody else, if you get them to before us, let us know, buy us a cup of coffee, tell us thank you, and good job.
Yeah, we love to hear success stories, but all right. So that's really all I had for today's presentation. We will go into, and this is why you see it's a multi-part because we can only cover so much in an hour. I think next week we're going to do more detailed on the deal analysis. So we'll probably set it up where we find a deal. We can go through that one deal throughout the entire hour, but we're gonna have to do some pre-work because doing a true deal analysis can take multiple days as well. So we're gonna try to package it up for you on next week's call. And if as always, if you're looking for deals now, make sure that you connect with us if you want to invest. There's active where you're doing the deals yourself, and then there's passive if you want passive as well. Reach out to us. And then As I said, in part one, we talked about deep diving into repair estimates. Part two, which was today, at a high level, how to find your rehabs, and a high level, how to analyze them. But next week, we're going to deep dive into your deal analysis.
And when we do that, let's remember to not only do the deal analysis for a rehab, you can tweak it a little and it becomes your deal analysis for new construction.
Yes. Yes. So I think Andrew, it would make sense when we get to rehabbing that we do an as is rehab and then an addition, and then we can do a tear down
Yep.
as is, and then maybe, you know, condo regime, because those are different. They're very different.
That'd be great.
So, and in Austin, we can tear down one, build two, and not have to subdivide. So it depends. Every code is different. Every city, every jurisdiction get to make up their own rules. So you have to learn and become an expert in that.
Yep.
Okay. So thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully this was of value to you, and hope to see you next week. Have a great day.
Adios.